When it comes to determining quality tweed, few signifiers are as highly regarded as that of the Harris Tweed Authority. It is in the name, after all. But is this seal of approval really all it's cracked up to be? To start answering this question, let's first dive into the history of Harris Tweed. Harris Tweed isn't actually a brand per se, but rather a group of mills that banded together in the 20th century to establish a benchmark for quality tweed. To learn more about tweed in general, you can consult our guide on the subject, but here's a quick rundown. True Harris tweed is woven and finished by experienced weavers in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. In fact, the word tweed itself comes from Hawick, Scotland, around the year 1826. This was one area where bales of tweels, or twill woolen fabrics, were sold. A clerk for Scottish-born London importer James Locke misread the label on one of these tweels. This is probably because the mills were close to the River Tweed in Scotland, and the name has stuck ever since. Soon, other makers were attempting to weave the style themselves with imported mill-spun yarn from the mainland. Who said knockoffs were a modern invention? Merchants on the island of Lewis and Harris fought to register and protect the use of the term tweed as coming from just their island. But the Scottish courts determined that all islands within the Outer Hebrides could use the term tweed. Still, the name Harris Tweed was chosen to protect all mills within the province in the year 1909. They're protected under the Orb trademark, featuring a globe topped by a Maltese cross and 13 jewels. This, by the way, is said to be the United Kingdom's oldest certification mark. Following modernization of equipment and a 1993 Act of Parliament, the former Harris Tweed Association Limited was rechristened the Harris Tweed Authority. Although there were 7 million yards of Harris Tweed produced in 1966, by the year 2006, that number was down to just 700,000. Despite its legal protections, after all, Harris Tweed did still have to compete in the marketplace. In the winter of 2006, veteran textile merchant Brian Haggis purchased the Kenneth Mackenzie Mill, which produced 95% of the Harris Tweed at the time. Hey, in a discussion about Scotland, you just knew that Haggis had to come up at some point. Haggis cut the number of patterns produced at that mill from over 8,000 to just 4, outsourcing some production elements to China with a primary focus on efficiency. He also put in place a just-in-time ordering system where he could supply any retailer with any size and quantity of Harris Tweed jacket in a matter of a few hours. This was a true feat of enterprise and know-how. Sales didn't improve overall, though, and some layoffs resulted. Enter New York real estate magnate Alan Bain and former British Trade Minister Brian Wilson, who each bought one of the other surviving historical mills for themselves. This left just 2 tiny mills to produce the world's entire remaining supply of authentic Harris Tweed, just 5% of what was produced before. Meanwhile, traditional cloth vendors had scoured the countryside for small stashes of the most colorful tweeds. A huge stash of many of the 8,000-odd variations, including experimental types, was found in one warehouse, discarded by the order of Haggis. Thus, this stash could be used as inspiration for the 2 surviving mills. A marketing renaissance also emerged, with the Harris Tweed Authority courting many fashion brands with the history, richness, and romance of their cloth. In 2019, Haggis handed the reins of the Kenneth Mackenzie Mill to managing director Alex Lockerbie, who was locally born in Stornoway. By this time, the mill accounted for about 38% of Harris Tweed production, with the other 2 mills making up the remaining 62%. So, although the history of Harris Tweed was significantly altered in the year 2006, this storied cloth is still around for us to enjoy today. As it says on the label, Harris Tweed is hand-woven in the Outer Hebrides from 100% wool, with some other variations depending on the age of the garment. The tweed was historically hand-spun as well, though technological advancements rendered this technique inefficient and ultimately obsolete. A variety of clothing manufacturers use this fabric as the material for their jackets and tailoring, not unlike many other well-known mills, such as the Italian Vitale Barberis Canonico. And aside from the most popular spongy, dry, and hairy variations of tweed, there are also other types as well. This would include the thorn-proof tweed used for hunting and sporting. Think of it as the original performance fabric. The wool for Harris Tweed is mainly harvested from the Cheviot and Scottish blackface types of sheep on the islands of the Outer Hebrides. Increased demand, though, has meant that 100% virgin wool from elsewhere in Britain, Australia, and New Zealand is also used today. The wool is dyed a variety of colors to be woven into complex color and pattern combinations. The dyeing process isn't like most weaving where the yarns are dyed, but instead the fleece itself is dyed before being spun into yarns. Once finished, the wool is put into a giant spin and tumble dryer until all of the moisture has been removed. The wool is separated into 30 base colors, which serve as the key ingredients when patterns are created. The most traditional tweed patterns are the so-called estate tweeds. Historically, these were the uniform patterns of the lords, ladies, and workers of a given estate, which were then trademarked by the mill. A fun fact for you, while tartans, which you can learn more about here, are for the entire clan or family line, these estate tweeds are just for the estates, or the properties themselves. The 30 base colors are weighed out in different amounts to determine which color and pattern will be created. The strands are kneaded together so that no one color is dominant. This creates a unique color in and of itself, and it kind of resembles a giant cake batter, though we wouldn't recommend eating it. When these different mixes are brought together, this is what gives tweeds their radiant color combinations. The kneaded fleece is dropped into a vacuum tube and broken up into smaller clumps, where it's blown around by what is essentially a giant leaf blower until the colors are thoroughly mixed and incorporated. Toothed rollers then tense and mix the fabric for more incorporation and maximum durability. Then the threads are spun 7 to 9 times to give them optimal strength. Tweed, unlike worsted wool, keeps both long and short fibers in the mix. This is what leads to that signature hairy feel, as well as those lively color combinations. Meanwhile, worsteds just keep their long fibers and are combed for that soft, uniform texture. At this point, the yarns are put on a loom to be woven and inspected for defects or weak points. This process is done entirely by hand in order to be considered genuine Harris tweed. Finally, the fabric is washed one more time to remove any remaining oils or impurities in the wool. Once the tweed fabric is fully prepared, it's then looked over by an inspector who gives an accepted cloth the official Harris Tweed Seal of Authority. The result is a sturdy and durable tweed fabric that can last for decades of wear and tear, or one mixed with softer fibers to create a more contemporary, comfort-first appeal. Now that we've discussed the cloth itself, let's go over some products made from Harris Tweed. The Harris Tweed shop offers a variety of products on their website, and most are things that you would probably expect to see, like suits, sport coats, waistcoats, and casual jackets. It is worth mentioning that today these garments tend to have a more contemporary cut to them, featuring things like narrower lapels, more open quarters, and less padded shoulders. But at around $400 a jacket, it's also likely that these are either half-canvassed or fully fused garments. By the way, you can learn more about the specifics of canvassing in jackets here. They also have some more vintage-inspired items available, like +4s or 8-panel flat caps. The Harris Tweed shop also offers gloves, dop kits, pillows, home goods, and many other accessories that feature the signature Harris Tweed as well as their seal in many cases. These items might be fun to consider if you're a big fan of the rustic aesthetic that Tweed creates, but they're probably not going to give you quite as much mileage as more classic menswear garments would. Of course, we have some different preferences for our gloves and accessories in particular, but we might be a bit biased. As mentioned earlier, many other menswear manufacturers, be they large brands or small tailoring shops, also buy Harris Tweed fabric to construct their own garments. This is true of a number of pieces in Raphael's collection, as well as the jacket that I'm wearing today. In today's video, I am of course wearing a jacket made from Harris Tweed. This one is vintage from the now defunct British menswear store Hodges. The overall feel is of a medium taupe, but there are also tones of green, orange, yellow, brown, blue, and black, all in the barleycorn weave. The casual nature of the jacket is also accented by its brown football buttons, and each sleeve features just one button on the cuff. This jacket is a brand new acquisition for my wardrobe at the time of filming this video, so I haven't even had a chance to get it tailored yet. If you've got any suggestions for how I might go about altering the jacket, feel free to leave them in the comments. Under the jacket, I'm wearing a light blue Oxford cloth button-down shirt. This one is also vintage, and I inherited it from my late grandfather. It features a relatively long spear point button-down collar, which provides an excellent frame for showing off the ascot I'm wearing today. This silk ascot from our own brand, Fort Belvedere, features a large paisley pattern in tones of burgundy, red, blue, and green, with a somewhat purplish character in certain spots as well. These colors are also echoed in my linen pocket square, featuring tones of blue and burgundy. My trousers are plain brown, though they do feature a reddish undertone, which also harmonizes with the color palette. My belt and shoes are both in medium brown, and the shoes in particular are wing-tipped, brogued derbies that feature no medallion on the toe cap. Rounding things out today are my two-toned shadow-striped socks in tan and navy blue, and the fragrance I'm wearing today, which is Green Irish Tweed from Creed. This one, of course, seemed especially appropriate. And of course, in the outdoor footage you're seeing, I'm wearing one of my trusty short-brimmed fedoras, this one in mustard brown. So, for the ascot, pocket square, and socks that I'm wearing in today's video, as well as a wide variety of other classic men's accessories, corduroy trousers, and fragrances from the Roberto Ugolini collection, you can take a look at the Fort Belvedere shop here. It's not just traditional menswear outfitters that use Harris Tweed, though. The fabric has also found a place in women's wear, and most contemporarily, the MLB has partnered with Harris Tweed for a line of wool baseball caps. If you're looking for a somewhat more refined baseball cap, this might be a good choice for you, but of course a flat cap or panel cap would be a more strictly classic choice. Still, we do appreciate that classic brands are finding different ways to expand their reach, and if one of these baseball caps is what gets you into a fabric like Harris Tweed, and then from there menswear, then so much the better. Overall, if construction methods are critical to you, then we'd suggest only buying from trusted makers who use Harris Tweed, or buying the fabric directly and taking it to a trusted tailor yourself. This way you can get exactly the style you want, and also address elements like full canvassing if you so desire. We believe that the Harris Tweed shop offers their smaller accessories for fair prices overall. However, some of the other materials they use, like leathers, tend to be on the cheaper side, so you might be better off finding dedicated accessories and small products from other retailers. So, now for the main question of today's video: is Harris Tweed worth it? Firstly, of course, it depends on what you're looking for. With Harris Tweed, you're typically going to be getting a fiber-dyed, heavier weight garment that is good for the colder months of the year. Because of the processes used to make it, you're going to get a rich color depth that not only looks good on its own, but is also easier to pair with other colors elsewhere in your outfit. Overall, if you see the Harris Tweed label, you can rest assured that you are buying what is, in general, a good product. That being said, not all Harris Tweed is alike, because modern Harris Tweed tends to be quite a bit different from vintage Harris Tweed. Any cloth produced under the auspices of the Harris Tweed Authority should be of high quality, especially if you're buying from a pre-2006 vintage. So, in this way, the cloth is worth it in a general sense. And, as mentioned before, buying the cloth directly and having it made into a garment by a trusted tailor will be your greatest guarantee of quality. Regarding manufactured garments, though, your mileage may vary. Whether they're from the Harris Tweed shop or any other seller, you'll need to independently assess the quality of their construction. And don't worry, as we have guides to help you with this also. In Raphael's experience, for instance, he's found that Harris Tweed is generally a good material for jackets, like sport coats, Norfolk jackets, or hunting jackets with game pockets. When it comes to hats or accessories, meanwhile, it will generally look the part, but will probably wear out a bit faster, specifically for handheld or handled accessories as opposed to hats, than something made from high-quality leather, for instance. Even though it's a hardy fabric, it will eventually wear out if you wear it hard. This is why so many jackets have elbow patches, after all. Generally, Harris Tweed also isn't necessarily ideal for pants and trousers, as its coarse and scratchy feel, as well as its heavy weight, won't be particularly comfortable for some. Of course, you certainly can get trousers in Harris Tweed, and you'll probably even want them for a proper shooting suit, for instance, but just make sure that you have a proper lining put in. For a higher guarantee of quality, you'll probably want to go vintage, as mentioned before, and there is a robust supply of vintage Harris Tweed available. But as with anything else, be mindful of the styling conventions, as there are plenty of second-hand Harris Tweed jackets out there, particularly from the 1980s and 90s, that were cut in boxy styles with things like center vents. Meanwhile, a jacket with a half belt or shooting pleats is probably going to be a bit more difficult to find. And you'll probably want to consider the odors from vintage tweed garments as well, though we do have a guide for how to get rid of these, which you can find here. So, ultimately, this review is somewhat different than most of the other installments in this series, as we can really only speak to the essential quality of the Harris Tweed cloth itself. As with any purchase, the whole is made up by materials on the one hand and construction on the other. Phrasing this another way, gold is certainly a valuable material on its own, but given that it is malleable and soft, it would be a particularly poor choice to be made into a shovel. And keep in mind that different retailers are going to charge their own prices, as well as using their own cuts and styles. And as a hardy, rugged cloth, Harris Tweed, or any tweed, is going to be better suited for cooler climates and harder-wearing large garments as opposed to small accessories. To sum all of this up then, you're going to have to use your menswear knowledge to determine if a specific garment made from Harris Tweed is something that you want to add to your collection. But, in general, the Harris Tweed cloth itself is of high quality and we find to be worth it. With that said, what are your experiences with Harris Tweed, either the cloth itself or garments made from it? Let us know in the comments below.